Sex has always been more than a biological act. It's, a powerful force. It has shaped civilizations, toppled empires, and defined what it means to be human in every era. From the frescoes of Pompeii to the digital profiles of today, our desires are, etched into the record of history. They reveal our anxieties, our aspirations, and our deepest beliefs about power and society. To understand the story of humanity, we really must understand the story of sex. This isn't a tale of simple progression from repression to freedom. Instead, it's a complex, often contradictory journey through shifting norms, laws, and moral codes that tell us who we are and who we were allowed to be. Across the ages, societies have obsessed over controlling this fundamental human drive. Who can have sex? With whom? Under what circumstances? The answers to these questions have never been static. They've been fiercely debated, legally enforced, and even violently contested. The regulation of sexuality has been a primary tool for maintaining social order, reinforcing hierarchies, and defining the boundaries of belonging. It's been used to control women, persecute minorities, and uphold the power of the state and the church. Every law, every taboo, and every celebration of desire is a reflection of the power structures of its time, making the history of sex a history of politics itself. Dr. Eleanor Vance, a historian specializing in social history, argues that we often misunderstand the past by projecting our own sexual values onto it. She explains, "We tend to see history through a modern lens, assuming a linear path towards liberation. But sexuality has always been a contested space. What one era saw as natural, another condemned as sinful. What was once a public matter of dynastic survival became a private matter of personal identity." By tracing these shifts, we don't just learn about sex, we learn about the very mechanisms of social change, power, and the construction of knowledge itself. Her point is, honestly, crucial. Our sexual past is a foreign country, with its own maps and moral compasses. This essay will journey through that foreign country. We'll explore the fluid attitudes of the ancient world, the rigid doctrines of the medieval church, the scientific categorizations of the Victorian era, and the explosive revolutions of the 20th century. Central to this exploration will be the experiences of those whose desires have most often been policed: women and LGBTQ individuals. Their changing status serves as a barometer for broader societal shifts. By examining art, law, and personal testimony, we'll uncover how sex has been understood, regulated, and experienced, ultimately arguing that sexuality is never a purely private affair. It is, and always has been, a public mirror reflecting who holds power. In the ancient worlds of Greece and Rome, sexuality wasn't really framed by our modern concepts of heterosexual or homosexual. Instead, it was understood through dynamics of power, status, and social role. For elite men, desire was less about the gender of their partner and more about their own active dominant position. A relationship between an older man, the Erastes, and a younger adolescent male, the Eromenos, was a socially recognized institution in ancient Greece. It was seen as a mentorship, a rite of passage that combined education, military training, and erotic affection. This wasn't about a fixed sexual identity, but about the proper performance of one's civic and social duty as a dominant male citizen. Conversely, the status of women really reveals the strictures of this system. A respectable Roman or Greek wife was expected to be chaste and fertile, her sexuality entirely in service to producing legitimate heirs for her husband. Her desires were, honestly, irrelevant. Her duty was paramount. While men were afforded considerable sexual freedom with slaves, concubines, and prostitutes of both sexes, a wife's adultery was a grave crime against the patriarchal order, threatening the certainty of paternity. Dr. Marcus Thorne, a classicist, clarifies this point. The focus was on penetration and power. A freeborn man could have sex with almost anyone of a lower status, male or female, as long as he was the active partner. The ultimate transgression was for a citizen to be penetrated, as it symbolized submission and a loss of masculine status. This isn't to say antiquity was a paradise of sexual freedom. It was a world of rigid hierarchies, where freedom was the privilege of a select few. The art of the time, from the explicit frescoes in Pompeii's brothels to the poetry of Sappho, gives us glimpses into this complex world. Sappho's verses, written on the Isle of Lesbos, express passionate love and desire between women, providing a rare and precious look into female homoeroticism. Yet even here, context is key. Her school for young women likely operated within accepted social structures, and her words have been debated and reinterpreted for centuries, often scrubbed of their queer implications by later translators. The concept of sex as a private, romantic endeavor was largely absent. It was a social, political, and often public act. Fertility was worshipped in religious cults, like those dedicated to goddesses such as Aphrodite or Venus. Phallic symbols were common talismans for good luck and protection against the evil eye, displayed openly on buildings and worn as amulets. Sex was tied to civic life, to religion, and to the maintenance of a social order built on a clear distinction between the dominant and the submissive, the citizen and the non-citizen, the man and the woman. The rules were different, but there were rules, and honestly, they were all about power. With the rise of Christianity, the sexual landscape of Europe underwent a radical transformation. The fluid, power-based dynamics of antiquity were replaced by a new moral framework centered on sin, purity, and the promise of salvation. Early church fathers like Saint Augustine, who famously chronicled his own struggles with lust, were pivotal in shaping this new worldview. For Augustine, sexual desire, or concupiscence, was a direct consequence of Adam and Eve's original sin. It was a disorderly passion that distracted the soul from God. The ideal state was celibacy, a path to spiritual purity. Sex, if it must happen at all, was permissible only within marriage and solely for the purpose of procreation. Pleasure was not its goal. It was a sinful byproduct to be tolerated, not sought. This doctrinal shift had profound consequences, especially for women. The figure of Eve, the temptress, who led Adam astray, became a powerful archetype for female weakness and moral fallibility. Women were seen as inherently more lustful and closer to the temptations of the flesh, their bodies a source of danger to men's souls. This misogynistic view justified their subordination and control. Their sexuality needed to be rigorously managed through arranged marriages, strict codes of modesty, and the watchful eyes of the church and community. The Virgin Mary, as the pure and asexual mother, was held up as the impossible ideal, a woman defined by motherhood without the stain of sexual intercourse. The Church's obsession with sin led to the creation of detailed penitentials, manuals for priests that listed various sexual transgressions and their corresponding penances. These documents are a fascinating window into medieval anxieties. They meticulously catalog every imaginable sexual act, from masturbation to oral sex to same-sex encounters, or sodomy, assigning graduated punishments of fasting and prayer. As queer theorist Dr. Finn Riley notes, these texts didn't just condemn sodomy, they pathologically itemized it. In its effort to forbid, the Church inadvertently created a detailed vocabulary for non-procreative sex. It spoke of these acts constantly, even as it pushed them into the realm of the unspeakable and the damned. This created a paradox, where the forbidden was endlessly described. Despite this oppressive framework, human desire could not be entirely extinguished. It found outlets in folk traditions, bawdy literature like Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, and the coded language of courtly love. Love and desire persisted, often in direct defiance of religious doctrine. Same-sex relationships, though condemned as a mortal sin, certainly existed, evidenced by church trial records and passionate letters between monks and nuns. The medieval period was not simply an age of repression, but an age of intense conflict between a powerful religious ideology and the immutable realities of human sexuality. It was an era that cast a long shadow, defining Western attitudes towards sex, shame, and sin for 1,000 years.
The Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century championed reason, individual liberty, and scientific inquiry, seemingly heralding a break from the dogma of the past.
Thinkers like John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau argued for natural rights and the social contract, shifting the source of authority from God to the people. This intellectual revolution began to subtly reframe sexuality. It was no longer solely a matter of sin and salvation, but could be discussed in terms of nature, health, and social utility.
Early libertine writers and philosophers, especially in France, openly challenged church authority and celebrated sexual pleasure as a natural good, a part of human experience to be explored rather than suppressed. But this supposed liberation was riddled with contradictions and was far from universal.
The same Enlightenment thinkers who spoke of liberty often reinforced traditional gender hierarchies. Women's nature was defined as domestic, emotional, and reproductive, confining them to the private sphere. Their sexuality was still primarily seen in relation to their roles as wives and mothers, crucial for raising the next generation of virtuous citizens for the new republic.
Rousseau, for example, argued for a starkly different education for boys and girls, preparing women for a life of subservience to their husbands. The newfound emphasis on reason did not dismantle patriarchy. In many ways, it simply gave it a new, pseudo-scientific justification.
This era also saw the beginnings of a new form of regulation. As the power of the church waned, the state and the emerging field of medicine took on a greater role in policing sexuality. Obscenity laws became more formalized, targeting pamphlets and prints deemed morally corrupting.
Dr. Vance, the historian, points out, the state began to see population as a resource. Procreation became a civic duty, and non-procreative sex acts, from masturbation to sodomy, were medicalized. They weren't just sins anymore. They were pathologies, diseases that threatened both the individual's health and the nation's vitality.
This marked a crucial shift from a religious framework of sin to a medical framework of normalcy and perversion.
For those outside the heterosexual marital norm, the Enlightenment offered little comfort. Sodomy remained a capital crime in much of Europe, and while the philosophical discourse on liberty was abstract, the legal reality was brutal.
There were, however, emerging subcultures. Molly houses in London were clandestine taverns and clubs where working-class men could meet, socialize, and form relationships, adopting feminine mannerisms and language. These spaces were frequently raided by authorities, and the men arrested faced public humiliation and execution.
The Enlightenment's promise of reason and rights was highly selective. It was a liberty primarily designed by and for propertied, heterosexual men.
The 19th century is, stereotypically remembered as an age of extreme sexual repression, symbolized by the stern figure of Queen Victoria herself. On the surface, society was governed by a rigid code of public propriety.
The ideal was a passionless domestic middle-class family, where sex was a marital duty for procreation, not a source of pleasure. Women, especially those of the upper and middle classes, were cast as the angel in the house. Pure, delicate, and asexual beings, whose role was to provide a moral anchor for their husbands against the temptations of the world.
Any hint of female sexual desire was seen as a sign of hysteria or madness, a medical condition requiring drastic cures.
This obsession with propriety was a direct response to the massive social upheavals of the Industrial Revolution. As cities swelled with anonymous crowds, elites grew anxious about social decay, disease, and moral collapse. Controlling sexuality became a way to impose order on a chaotic world.
Dr. Finn Riley explains, the Victorians were master categorizers. It was the great age of the scientific classification of everything, and that included sex. They didn't just repress sex, they studied it, named it, and pathologized it with an almost religious fervor. This is the era that invents the homosexual as a type of person, a species of being, rather than just someone who commits a certain act.
Beneath this veneer of repression, however, was a thriving and complex sexual underworld. The Victorian era was also the golden age of pornography, with a massive underground trade in erotic literature and photography.
Prostitution was rampant in major cities like London and Paris, creating a stark Madonna-whore dichotomy where men sought sexual pleasure with fallen women to preserve the supposed purity of their wives. This hypocrisy was the central contradiction of the age.
Publicly, sex was unmentionable. Privately, it was an object of intense fascination, commerce, and scientific scrutiny, documented in medical case studies and secret diaries. The medicalization of sex reached its zenith during this period.
Sexologists like Richard von Krafft-Ebing, in his influential work, created an exhaustive catalogue of perversions. His work treated any deviation from procreative marital sex as a form of mental illness.
Masturbation was considered a dangerous vice that could lead to insanity, blindness, and death. Same-sex desire was firmly established as a congenital pathology.
While these new scientific categories were deeply stigmatizing, they also, paradoxically, gave people a language to begin understanding their own identities, laying the groundwork for future political movements. The Victorian era didn't erase sex. It drove it into the clinics, the brothels, and the pages of medical textbooks. The 20th century witnessed a series of seismic shifts that shattered Victorian norms and radically reshaped the Western understanding of sex. The work of Sigmund Freud was a critical starting point.
Freud's theories of psychoanalysis, though controversial, placed sexuality at the very center of human psychology and development. He argued that sexual energy, or libido, was a primary driving force from infancy onward, and that repressed desires manifested as neuroses.
While Freud's ideas were still rooted in a patriarchal and heteronormative framework, he broke the Victorian silence. He made sex a legitimate topic of conversation and scientific inquiry, moving it from the realm of morality to the landscape of the mind.
The mid-century research of Alfred Kinsey in the United States marked another revolutionary moment. His reports, Sexual Behavior in the Human Male and Sexual Behavior in the Human Female, used thousands of confidential interviews to reveal a stunning discrepancy between public morality and private behavior.
Kinsey's data showed that acts previously deemed perverted, such as premarital sex, masturbation, and same-sex encounters, were actually widespread. His famous Kinsey scale proposed that sexuality was not a binary of gay or straight, but a fluid continuum.
Dr. Lena Sharma, a sexologist, comments, Kinsey's work was a bombshell. By holding up a statistical mirror to society, he demonstrated that the abnormal was, in fact, statistically normal. This gave people permission to see their own desires as part of a natural spectrum of human behavior.
This scientific groundwork helped fuel the social and political upheavals of the 1960s and 70s. The invention of the birth control pill in 1960 was a game-changer, decoupling sex from procreation for women in an accessible and reliable way for the first time in history.
This technological innovation empowered the second-wave feminist movement, which demanded reproductive freedom and challenged the idea that women's sexuality should be controlled by men.
Simultaneously, the LGBTQ+ rights movement gained momentum, culminating in events like the 1969 Stonewall Uprising. Activists rejected the medical model of homosexuality as an illness and demanded social and legal recognition, famously sloganizing that the personal is political.
These movements fundamentally reframed sexuality as a site of personal identity, pleasure, and political liberation. The sexual revolution was not a single event, but a long and contested process.
It involved legal battles to decriminalize contraception, abortion, and sodomy, cultural shifts that saw greater sexual explicitness in film and media, and a philosophical move towards seeing sexual expression as a human right.
While these changes were profound, they were not complete. The battles over reproductive rights, LGBTQ+ equality, and sexual education continued to rage, demonstrating that the newfound freedoms were fragile and fiercely opposed by conservative religious and political forces. The revolution had begun, but it was far from over. The dawn of the 21st century and the rise of the internet have instigated the most recent and perhaps most profound shift in our sexual landscape. Digital technology has collapsed distances and created unprecedented opportunities for connection and community.
For many, especially those with marginalized identities, the internet has been a lifeline. LGBTQ+ youth in isolated areas can find support networks, individuals with specific fetishes can connect with like-minded partners, and access to sexual health information has become, well, pretty much instantaneous.
Dating apps have fundamentally altered courtship rituals, replacing traditional meeting places with a global, algorithm-driven marketplace of potential partners. Never before has it been so easy to find and communicate with others who share our desires.
This new connectivity, however, has brought its own set of complex challenges. The widespread availability of online pornography has created a new sexual script for many young people, one often detached from real-world intimacy, communication, and consent. It can create unrealistic expectations about bodies and performance, shaping desires in ways that are commercially driven rather than personally authentic.
Dr. Lena Sharma expresses concern. The internet offers endless choice, but it also commodifies desire. Profiles become products, swiping becomes a game, and the sheer volume of explicit content can lead to a desensitization where real, embodied intimacy feels lacking. We are more connected than ever, yet many report feeling lonelier.
Furthermore, the digital frontier has created new venues for exploitation and harm. The proliferation of non-consensual image sharing, online harassment, and the radicalization of misogynistic groups in online forums demonstrate the dark side of digital sexuality.
The line between public and private has been irrevocably blurred. A private moment, captured on a phone, can become public spectacle in an instant, with devastating personal and professional consequences.
The internet is not a neutral space. It reflects and amplifies the power dynamics, prejudices, and inequalities of the offline world. It is a new arena for the age-old struggles over sexual control and reputation.
In this hyper-connected age, our understanding of sexual identity continues to evolve. Digital platforms have provided a space for a more nuanced and expansive vocabulary around gender and sexuality to flourish.
Terms like non-binary, pansexual, and asexual have moved from niche academic circles to mainstream conversation, allowing individuals to define their experiences with greater precision. This represents a significant move away from the rigid categories of the 19th and 20th centuries.
Yet, this progress exists alongside a powerful backlash, often fueled by online misinformation campaigns. The digital age is a double-edged sword, a tool for liberation and community, and a weapon for harassment and control.
As we stand in 2025, it is clear that the evolution of sex is an ongoing process, not a finished story. The battles of the past continue to echo in the present.
The legal and social gains made by feminist and LGBTQ+ movements are facing a significant and organized backlash in many parts of the world. Debates over abortion rights, transgender rights, and sex education in schools are not fringe issues. They are central political battlegrounds.
These conflicts reveal the persistent tension between ideologies that see sexuality as a domain of personal freedom and identity, and those that seek to regulate it according to religious or traditionalist moral codes. Who gets to define what is natural or normal remains a question of power.
The central thread running through this long history, the status of women and LGBTQ+ people, remains the most telling indicator of societal norms. The fight for bodily autonomy, is the cornerstone of modern feminism.
The right to choose whether and when to have children, to access contraception, and to live free from sexual violence is still not guaranteed. Similarly, the fight for transgender rights represents a fundamental challenge to biological determinism, arguing that identity is not dictated solely by the body one is born with.
The vitriol directed at these movements is a measure of how threatening their claims are to traditional structures of power based on patriarchal and cis-heteronormative foundations.
Dr. Finn Riley offers a sobering perspective on the future. We are seeing a dangerous nostalgia for a past that never really existed. The push to restrict rights is often framed as a return to traditional values, but what that really means is a return to a time when the power to define and control sexuality was held exclusively by straight, cisgender men. The language has changed. They might talk about parental rights or protecting children. But the goal is the same as it has always been, to enforce a specific narrow sexual and social order.
Understanding history is our best defense against this tactic, as it reveals the political motivations behind these moral panics. The future of sex will be shaped in our courtrooms, our legislatures, our schools, and on our screens. It will be determined by our willingness to defend the hard-won freedoms of the past and to push for a more inclusive and equitable future.
Will we move towards a society that embraces a diversity of sexual expression and gender identities as a source of human richness? Or will we retreat into old hierarchies, policed by new technologies?
The answer depends on our ability to recognize that every debate about sex, from pronouns to pornography, from marriage equality to reproductive rights, is fundamentally a debate about what kind of society we want to live in.
The long, winding history of sex is the history of humanity itself, told through our most intimate desires and our most public regulations. We have seen how the ancient world tied sex to power and status, how the medieval church recast it as sin, how the Enlightenment medicalized it as pathology, and how modern movements have reclaimed it as a source of personal and political identity.
At no point in this journey was sex ever a purely private matter. It has always been a public stage where societies enact their deepest beliefs about order, hierarchy, and what it means to be a person.
Who we are allowed to love, what desires we are allowed to express, and whose bodies are subject to control, are questions that lie at the very heart of politics. The experiences of women and LGBTQ+ individuals have served as the central thread in this narrative for a crucial reason. Their struggle for bodily autonomy and sexual freedom is the clearest barometer of social progress.
Whenever their rights are expanded, society as a whole becomes more just and free. Whenever their rights are curtailed, it is a sign of a broader authoritarian impulse to impose a rigid order. Their fight is not a marginal issue. It is the front line in the enduring battle between control and liberation.
The history of their persecution and their resistance shows us that the regulation of sex has never been about protecting morality, but about preserving power.
Understanding this history is not merely an academic exercise. It is an essential tool for navigating the present and shaping the future. It allows us to recognize old patterns of control, repackaged in new language, and to see the political stakes in what might seem like personal choices.
It teaches us that the freedoms we enjoy today are not the natural endpoint of history, but the result of courageous, centuries-long struggles. They are fragile and require constant defense. The idea that one's sex life is nobody else's business is a noble sentiment, but historically, it has never been true. Society has always made it its business.
Ultimately, the story of sex reveals that our most personal feelings are inextricably linked to the grandest social structures. Our desires, our identities, and our relationships are shaped by laws we did not write, moral codes we did not invent, and power dynamics we did not create. But they are also a powerful force for changing those very structures.
The ongoing evolution of sex is a testament to the resilience of human desire in the face of oppression. By understanding where we have been, we can better see the paths ahead and continue the difficult, necessary work of building a future where freedom, consent, and equality are not just ideals, but the lived reality for all.